Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Marvel Studios Thunderbolts.
We are the Thunderbolts.
Hello, I'm J-Law, but you can call me Justin, and if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast covering the world of movies, TV shows, toys, collectibles, gaming, and all things geek-centric. And today, my fellow geeks aren't here. That's right. If you've been following us on Instagram, you know we were in Japan. We were covering Star Wars Celebration, and actually, a majority of those geeks stayed in Japan. They are still traveling, but that has forced me to assemble a new team of geeks as special guests for today's spoiler-free review. So allow me to introduce them to you right now. Today, we are joined by friend of the show who's been on here before. He is one half of the Untitled Movie Podcast. You know him. We love him. Mr. Matt Rorabeck. How are you?
The Avengers are in Japan, so you call on the B Squad. The Thunderbolts are here.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you for joining. And joining us as well, new to this show, someone who has become a good friend of the podcast to all of us geeks over the last year through conventions and screenings. She's one of the many talents over at Agents of Fandom. So please welcome Aisha Shabeese. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. You crushed it, by the way. Crushed it. No, first name and last name. Crushed it.
Right. Okay, good. You know me, if you know anything about me from our listeners and as well, I always struggle with names. And
oh, dude, same.
I appreciate that. How are you both doing after yesterday's loss for the Leafs? I know you both are massive Leafs fans. How you feeling?
I mean, go ahead. I don't know. I mean, I'm fine. I'm not panicking at all.
I'm not as stressed. I'm still mad about those people who came in with like freaking brooms.
Yeah.
Like that really jinxed us. Like I had a feeling. I was like, no.
Yeah. Well, you
They'll
know
be
what? I
back.
think they call it a gentleman's sweep if it's not a full sweep. So,
Yeah, 4-1. Yeah, I'll take a gentleman's sweep. You know what? I'm still confident. I'm not as panicky as I usually am. I think if they lose the next game, I start to spiral.
Yeah,
but I start to get PTSD if they lose the next one. But like right now, I feel fine. I'm like, I never expected them to sweep. So you know, and I keep thinking to not make this a Toronto Maple Leafs podcast, but I will be very, very brief. But if we would have been like, up 2-1 and won the last game, to be up 3-1, I'd be thrilled. So I'm fine with where we are right now. I'm very happy. So
hey,
agreed.
I think there's going to be an opportunity if I don't want to jinx us as well, but if the Leafs actually can't do this, I know Kevin is going to want to host a we did it podcast sort of.
Oh my God, don't put that out there, Justin. Stop. I'm going to Japan at the beginning of June, and in my head I'm like doing that fucking, I'm like, if they make the Stanley Cup final, it'll be while I'm in Japan, so I'm gonna have to wake up at 8 a.m. to watch the games on my laptop, and my wife will be thrilled with that. Yeah.
You're like kind of in Japan, but you're not in Japan.
Yeah.
Just quietly screaming on the TV, just like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you again so much for joining us and stepping in to offer some thoughts on this film. I'm excited to have you both on. Again, Matt, we've talked numerous times, but Aisha, like I've been always just trying to find an opportunity. So this is great. This is perfect.
Yeah, this is perfect.
Get your thoughts on this before we start talking about the movie. I do have, I guess it's kind of a loaded question, but we were kind of talking about it before we started recording. But there's a lot of talk around the MCU. Post Endgame, we've got a lot of movies, a lot of shows. Quality has ranged, and I guess the easiest way to phrase it is sort of like how do both of you feel about the state of the MCU? Because we're now entering sort of like, I guess, like sort of like the final lap, if you will, as we get towards Fantastic Four, and then next year is Doomsday, and then the year after that is we got Spider-Man, I think, as well in between there, and then we also have Secret Wars finally in 2027, and it's all been working towards this. And it was just announced today, actually. I just read an article that they're starting filming this week on
Tomorrow.
Doomsday. Yeah, tomorrow, which is a movie that's coming out next year, which I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm a little nervous, but I don't know. But I wanted to, maybe just kind of kick things off. How have you guys both been feeling about the MCU thus far? Aisha, let's start with you.
Sure. I mean, for starters, that VFX department has to get going.
Good Lord. Yeah.
I mean, to me, the multiverse saga has been pretty mixed. I feel like with the addition of like Disney Plus shows, like Marvel has, they're in a spot where there's too much but too little time,
Mhm,
you know?
mhm,
And like they've introduced so many characters and like they're super exciting, but they're also like, when are we gonna see them next? I'm still
mhm,
thinking about Oscar Isaac. I'm like, when are we gonna see him again as Midnight? But like, the MCU has like, hear me out. Like, I loved WandaVision, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man No Way Home, Guardians of the Galaxy, Daredevil Born Again, like just to name a few. Like Marvel has had some hits, but it's truly like quality over quantity.
mhm.
And I'm thrilled for Doomsday and Secret Wars, like seeing that lineup of chairs, that 5 hour live stream. I watched the whole thing.
I think a lot of people
It
did. I did too. I had it running while I was working.
I
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
I
It's just
did.
like, and like every like 15 minutes, it was like a new person. I'm like, oh my god. But yeah, like to see the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men like finally sharing the screen will be amazing. It'll be like the comics.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah. Matt, how about for yourself?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I mean, I think we're all still in an Endgame hangover, even though that was, 6 years ago now. And we've had many, many shows and movies since then. And I think, it ebbs and flows. I will always be an MCU sicko. I will probably watch every single show and every single movie until this ultimately they do a reboot and a soft reboot and everything's still canon, but everything's new. And I'll watch everything. And I think even bad MCU stuff is still mildly enjoyable. So, which I think is a great thing. So I still have enjoyed a lot of the multiverse saga. I think for every, really good movie, I think there or one every good project, I guess, because I always forget about the Disney Plus shows too, because there is so much to
Yeah.
Aisha's point. I think there's a couple that are just kind of fine. And I really loved No Way Home and Wakanda Forever and Guardians
Hmm.
3. I remember bawling my eyes out. And Deadpool and Wolverine is a real MCU sicko movie. But then you get things like, Brave New World, which just came out, Quantum Mania, Love and
Hmm.
Thunder. I mean, I've come around on Multiverse of Madness. I do like that movie, but just because Sam Raimi and it's kind of all over the place. But yeah,
Yeah.
fun. Eternals, which had so much potential with Chloe Zhao, and it's just been kind of messy. And but I'm still excited for where they're going, and I'm excited to talk about this movie because I do feel like we're sort of back on track. And I know it's only, I think phase 5 we've had, Quantumania, then Guardians Volume 3, Marvels, which is kind of whatever, then Deadpool and Wolverine, and then Brave New World, and then now Thunderbolts. So we'll see where phase 6 brings us, but I just love this universe and love talking about it. So
Hmm.
even the stuff that's even over on our show with, my co-host Eric, who's not an MCU sicko at all. He comes from kind of more of the critical angle. I always have really fun conversations with him and get him involved with my obsessing over this silly universe. So I'm still all in. I still can't wait for phase 6. And I really, with Fantastic Four coming up in Doomsday, it does feel like we're barreling ahead very
We
quickly.
are, yeah.
Yeah.
But I still love all this stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you both. Like I think it hasn't all been perfect. There's gems in this pool, but I think it really does come down to, Endgame was a 20 film, 10-year buildup. We're they're doing a lot more with less time. They've
Hmm.
pretty much, I'm pretty sure they've over delivered content from TV and film over 20 projects, right?
Yeah.
So
They
like
did.
yeah, so there's been a lot in the pool to get us to Secret Wars, and I think that's also it. I think you're both right. I think that we've had some really great projects, and I think this film is, like you said, Matt, is kind of like is like a glimmer of hope. The idea that there's still that attention to character focused stories rather
Mhm.
than just this idea of building to what's next. And I think
Hmm.
that's what's really great. I think you said it, I should. It's like it's quality over quantity, and I think it's like there was always this mentality before where it was like, maybe 2 movies a year or a movie a year. Now it's like 3 movies a year and 2 series or whatever, right? And there's a lot to take in, and how much of it is actually relevant for Secret Wars, we'll find out. We already know based on the cast for Doomsday that there's a lot that's going to be overlapped, but there's still more apparently to be announced for that
There's
film.
still more.
So
There's
who
still
knows if we
more.
get a Charlie Cox or a Punisher or whatever, right? Like, or who knows if who else we'll see. But again, that said, yeah, I think this feels like a sort of good, like Thunderbolts feels like it's a real nice sort of lead in to where we're going with Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, and Doomsday leading us into Secret Wars. So yeah, I'm interested to talk about it. So let's get into it. I'm gonna first just give our lovely listeners the synopsis here. In Thunderbolts, Marvel Studios assembles an unconventional team of anti-heroes: Yelena Belova, Bucky Barnes, Red Guardian, Ghost, Taskmaster, and John Walker. After finding themselves ensnared in a death trap set by Valentina Allegra de Fante, I think I said that right, these disillusioned cast-offs must embark on a dangerous mission that will force them to confront the darkest corners of their past. Will this dysfunctional group tear themselves apart or find redemption and unite as something much more before it's too late? The film is directed by Jake Schreier and stars Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Wyatt Russell, Olga Kurlenko, Geraldine Viswanathan, Chris Bauer, Wendell Pierce, with David Harbour and Hannah John Kamen and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Thunderbolts opens exclusively in theaters May 2nd, 2025. A huge thanks on behalf of all of us to Marvel Studios Canada for allowing us to see this movie early for review. So let's get into it, guys. How did you guys feel about the look of this film? Did you feel like it felt different from other MCU films?
Yeah, I think that's one of my biggest things about the movie, that the whole thing just felt different. Like, it felt like Feige and the entire team was kind of listening, and like we just talked about, it felt like we were kind of in a weird spot with, strikes and pandemics and, that quantity over quality that they were kind of going through with all the Disney Plus shows and all the movies. And it kind of feels a bit of a reset point. And I think you can see that in the cinematography of the movie and the sound of the movie and the music of the movie. And we'll get into the rest. But while watching this, I'm just like, man, it definitely feels familiar but fresh for the MCU right now. It feels grounded, it feels gritty, but it's still ultimately a superhero movie. And it is one of those kind of Trojan horse style movies that has a lot of emotion and character, and I think that's all represented in the look of the movie. And I really loved how it looked. I thought the cinematography was great, and I just felt while I was watching this, I'm like, this feels, I don't know, it just, not the like we're back thing, because I never think we left, because what we're saying,
Yeah,
for every good one,
I
there's
don't
like,
understand those
We're
sentiments,
so
man.
bad!
yeah, like
We're so
I
bad!
like to joke about that, but I'm like, what I mentioned, even the kind of not so great stuff I still enjoy watching. And I just something felt different watching this throughout the whole thing. I'm like, oh, this feels like the MCU, but it feels like it's like, okay, we're trying to do something a little bit, I hate using the term like elevated either, because I do think each movie they're trying to make a great movie, but they're not just trying to have people beat each other up. And so, like, Captain America Brave New World felt like your classic superhero kind of movie of being like, all right, that was fine, so people beat the shit out of each other, some things blew up, there was kind of this espionage story, and it was whatever. And then this felt like there was a little bit more, and I think that's represented throughout every aspect of it, with the practical stunts and the sets and things like that. So yeah, I thought it looked great.
Yeah, I have to agree with Matt. Like, to me, Thunderbolts felt, it was giving major like phase 2 vibes. Like, to me, like
Non-derogatory.
I don't know, it felt like Captain America: The Winter Soldier is like my all-time favorite
Oh
Marvel
yeah.
movie. So like
Likewise.
and Thunderbolts felt very similar to that, and obviously with different characters, with the exception of Bucky. But again, like you said, it had a lot of grounded, gritty tones there, and I think director Jake Schreier and Marvel like absolutely nailed that for a new, fresh feel with Thunderbolts. It's like new
Yeah,
but familiar.
yeah, I totally agree. I think it gives off the Winter Soldier vibes entirely. But what was so great about Winter Soldier is how they stripped everything superhero-esque out of it, right? Like they were coming off of the heels of like Avengers, right? So it was like, okay, well, Avengers has a very superhero vibe. It just felt like that was so purposely done, and it feels like it's purposely done here, especially after something like you said, Matt, like with Brave New World. Like it was just it felt so cookie cutter to what you would expect from that sort of spectacle MCU film, that this film's look and feel just brings it back down to like a grounded, sort of very naturalistic, very authentic looking film, right? Like it doesn't doll itself up too much, right? It's not about the spectacle. It is really staying honed in on the characters. I will say though, you know, like the one thing that I did like was obviously the more hand to hand combat style that you see in the choreography. But when we start to see our antagonists taking on our heroes or anti-heroes or whatever, you start to see these CGI, and you start to see a little bit of that. I think at least like where the budget wasn't necessarily there kind of thing. You
Mhm.
know, just the way the movements were happening and some of the fight sequences, it just the physics didn't look right. It looked a little rubbery and over animated. But that said, like I think sticking to potentially, sticking to more, authentic and real fight sequences, and something that feels more grounded really works to the benefit of this film and helps to, as you said, Matt, elevate it. I loved the whole like stunt at the beginning with Florence, jumping off of that building to really help kind of, I guess, show off the level of authenticity that they wanted to go, or the level of realism that they wanted to really leverage in this film to kind of give it a more grounded stakes, because these guys aren't the Avengers. They're not like
Mhm.
superheroes, right? They're anti-heroes, and they're misunderstood. So I feel like the tone of the movie and the look and the feel from a tone perspective really does match that of the characters themselves. So yeah. And who scored the movie? I thought it was
It's
Sun.
Son Lux
Yeah.
Sun
who
Lux.
did Everything Everywhere All at Once, and
Yeah.
like, which I
Yeah.
didn't know until I was watching the press conference today, and I was like, wait, what? And
Yeah.
the music's good, but it just didn't click. This is one of those movies that I think how I kind of judge MCU movies too is if I want to go see it again.
Right.
And like then I go, okay, then I really know that this one's a banger, or it's a good one that I actually want to take my wife to go see it, or go
Mhm.
see it Thursday night when it opens, even though I saw a press screening and things like that. And yeah,
Mhm.
Justin, to your point of that opening the film with that first stunt with Yelena jumping off the building. And mind you, it's not a Tom Cruise Mission Impossible level
Of
kind of
course.
stunt. It's still very
Yeah.
cool. And I like that they actually went to that building and jumped off. It's
Yeah, they
so,
The
it
committed to
second
it.
sounds so,
tallest, highest building in the world.
there you go. And it just feels like so silly to even say that, but I think we've just gotten so used to everything shooting on blue screen or green screen
Mhm.
in a sound stage and things
Yeah.
like that. All these movies looked so similar for so long, right? And that's
Mhm.
fine. It's a serialized storytelling. They all kind of had this same look and feel, which made them all feel kind of aligned to tell this interconnected story. But I think we started, as people's interest waned a little bit in these later phases after Endgame. They went, okay, we need to kind of get back to, to Aisha's point, the roots of going back to maybe some of the earlier Marvel movies and
Yeah.
shooting on location and doing stunts out in the street and blowing up cars and
Yeah.
like doing all this stuff, and not just relying on. And I know there's always a mix of practical
That's the
and
best
digital
though.
effects,
It's the
but
best stuff
um,
though. Yeah.
when you mix those together and do a lot of practical with a lot of digital instead
Yeah.
of just a lot of digital with just a little
What
bit of practical, you can really tell. And I think you can see that in the movie.
which just again has me really worried about Doomsday, right? Especially given the
Yeah.
fact that
Yeah.
they've gone on the record that they've said like they're planning to shoot like a large majority of it indoors to avoid
Yeah. I
paparazzi's
mean,
capturing everything. And I understand that. And I know that there's a lot that can be achieved indoors with like building maybe like, you know, real life sets, but I don't know. There's just you can always tell, right? Like the volume has
Mhm.
now been overused so much in
mhm.
Lucasfilm Star Wars that sorry, in Star Wars content that it's just it sometimes takes you out when you notice the volume and how prevalent it is. So to your point, Matt, it's like the use of green screen and blue screens, especially even like what we saw in Infinity War with some of the planets and stuff like that, and Endgame as well with all the final battle stuff. Like we know how it's going to play out and how it can come off, right?
Yeah,
So
that movie is so going to be so tricky. I mean, it'll be much like, I mean, that's why you bring the Russo brothers back in, and we don't need to go off on a tangent about,
sure.
Doomsday quite
That's
yet.
so
Maybe at the end of this podcast, but that's why you bring them back, because they've already done it. And I'm sure it'll look very similar to that movie. And well, I guess we have no idea what that movie will be, but yeah,
Well, we'll see.
we'll see.
just a mix of
maybe.
characters with powers plus
Yeah.
ground level characters. It's just a lot.
Yes.
It's just a lot.
I'm excited. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm
Yeah,
definitely
it's-
excited for that level of all of these characters interacting. And like we were saying, they announced the whole cast or a majority of the cast and a 5-hour seat reveal, which was pretty wild. And some of these characters from Thunderbolts did show up in that cast reveal.
Yes, they did.
And let's talk about some of them. I'd love to know for you both, like, who are your standouts? Who were the ones that really kind of you connected with? We'll start with you. Who was a character that really you connected with you?
But for starters, I need to protect all these characters at all costs. I need to protect all of them. However, the standouts for me were Florence Pugh's Yelena and Lewis Pullman's Bob. I think the whole cast did amazing. Like they all worked really well together. I especially adore like the banter between Ava, Yelena, and John a lot. I mean, we saw that in the trailer, but getting to see that like in its completion in the film was great. I mean, Florence Pugh, I think we all can agree is like the star of this movie. Like
Yeah.
Flo, like my girl Flo likes to carry all the movies she is in on her back, and Thunderbolts is no exception. Come on, like she's like a star, a star.
Matt, how about for yourself?
Yeah, I'll just echo what Aisha said. Like, I think this is very much a Yelena movie. It almost feels like a kind of a sequel to Black Widow, and her character more than anyone else. So I think, even okay, well, we won't. Yeah, it's so tricky dancing around things. It's very much a Yelena movie, I think, and then a
Yeah.
Bob movie, to Aisha's point. And I think
Yelena
everyone
Bob.
surrounding those two are there. Like, I was surprised that Bucky's role in the movie is actually kind of smaller than I thought it would be. I love Wyatt Russell and I love John Walker. Like, I was probably the one person at a press screening just cracking up at everything he said.
Me too.
Like,
yeah.
I love him playing an asshole like
Yeah.
Captain America. Like, I absolutely love that character, and I think Wyatt Russell's amazing. But yeah, Lewis Pullman as Bob, I think is fantastic. And yeah, Florence Pugh is just one of the best actresses alive. So just her carrying this movie is understandable, and I think focusing on her is understandable. I just think some of the other characters I feel like maybe are just kind of set dressing in there to kind of move things along and like interact and have funny dialogue and things like that. Like, I wouldn't say, I guess David Harbour is always fun. Like, I love that guy too. And the connection with the Yelena character is great. But like, having Ghost there and Taskmaster, like, is just, I think Hannah John Kammon's great. And I love the bringing back old villains and having these characters interact who haven't interacted before. But there's just some people where I'm like, okay, you didn't have a lot to do, and even the movie doesn't go into their stories as much as some other characters too, right? They pick and choose who they want to focus on or tell them why they're in this situation. And if we go into some of the more introspective kind of reflective themes of the movie, like, it focuses on some of those other characters that I mentioned. So and yeah, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, that character, which they're really trying to make as like the Nick Fury of this of the multiverse saga, but I guess even Nick Fury and Val have a lot of similarities at both trying to do the right thing but don't care who they piss off doing it, or sort of do villainous things. She's more obviously villainous at times, but I don't, and her being kind of the antagonist of the movie didn't always work for me. But I think the way it all plays out, without saying anything, I think is really fun. So anyways, that's my long-winded thing about all the characters.
No,
Did I miss a character? I don't know.
No, I think you nailed it all.
Can I add on to the Bucky thing?
Yeah, for sure.
I get we've seen Sebastian as Bucky for like over a decade, but like this story, we get to see him like with characters who've also been mistreated the way he has. And I wish we could have like leaned into his journey a bit like we saw in Falcon Winter Soldier, but like this time with characters who share the same things as him.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see what you're saying there. I think that was all purposely done because I think if you look back at some of these characters already in their past films, like let's talk about Ghost quickly. You know,
Mhm.
Ava Starr's character was kind of fleshed out and what her trauma, what her where her angst or her sort of
Yeah.
villain side comes from. Same with Taskmaster in Black Widow. Same with Bucky, which has been overly explored in terms
Yeah.
of length. And you know,
It's a good point.
is even John Walker. We got so much about John Walker and what he's dealing with post, you know, Winter Soldier, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and that perception of him as Captain America, but now he's like the failed Captain America. It's all been all that groundwork has already been established, which is nice. They don't spend too much time having to retread on that. It's here where all of that trauma really matters. It then does narrow in on how Yelena and Bob really do have this sort of a very intertwined relationship based on their own grief and their own
Mhm.
they're all struggling with this idea of self-worth, and I think that that's what really brings this cast together. Like I think they're absolutely incredible, and I think the fact that Bucky is sort of the instigator of it, I think is kind of funny. He's kind of being a Captain America without being Captain America.
Totally.
So I think that
Yeah.
that's because he never wanted to be, right? He didn't think he was worthy of that title, and I think that you know, like you said, Matt, you know, with Valentina being this antagonist, you know, he is the sort of the protagonist to that. He is creating his own mission against her. But you know, you were mentioning it, Matt. You know, Julia Louis Dreyfus. It's kind of seen as the antagonist, and I think it's interesting because you know she is a figure of authority, much like Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury. But what I think is really interesting is that just like Sam Jackson with Nick Fury, he's just himself as that character. And with Julia, she seems like she's just bringing a lot of herself to Valentina, which is always great. Like I think when actors can just kind of just melt into these characters and they're not necessarily putting on too much of an overt character, you know, that feels too much outside of themselves, it's always refreshing because then you can really get into it. But you know, this is the most that we have seen of her character, and I think she's definitely leaning into it a lot more. She's leaning into that, as you said, like that sort of that mystery, that aura of mystery of you know, is she good, is she bad, what are her intentions? I think that
Mhm.
that's very much her play in this. But you guys talked about all the other characters that I absolutely adored. I think Florence is outstanding. This is definitely, like you guys said, a Yelena movie. I think she carries it with just flawlessly. Like Florence mostly does for a lot of the films. I'm waiting for Dune 3. I think Dune 3 she will definitely carrying that film. I was surprised with how little Sebastian Stan was in this, or how maybe not how little, but just in the sense of how he was leveraged. But I think that actually makes sense given the other characters, giving them
Yeah.
that time to shine, and I think that
Yeah.
really is
He's there
great.
for the marketing and for, you know, the legacy characters that people
Yes,
recognize.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know they recognize everyone, but I think he's
he's
the
trying to
big
be a
one of
Cap,
going.
right? He's trying to be
He's
a
Yeah.
been
Cap.
there since phase one. They gotta shove
Exactly.
Yeah.
someone in there.
Yeah, he's been there actually longer than I think that anyone has really anticipated, given his
Him and
contract.
Hemsworth
Yeah,
And
and Chris
Hiddleston
Hemsworth.
too.
yeah,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
Hiddleston. Yeah.
Tom.
But yeah, I think again he's trying to be a Cap without being a Cap, right? He's trying to be Steve. He's trying to be a leader, and I think he shows it in the right ways, and he also shows it how he's really awkward about it as well. And I think that that's what's so great about Bucky's character, and just him still figuring it out. But yeah, for me, it's Lewis Pullman. I think him and Florence have such a entangled narrative that feels very parallel to one another, and this whole idea of self-worth and you know, feeling like, you know, understanding your own grief and how it affects you, and really saving yourself at the end of the day. I think it's all imbued. This whole story is pretty much imbued in Bob, you
Yeah.
know, in his character,
Yeah.
and even just this idea of the void being a place where you stuff your feelings and where things go to, like, you forget. and then how that kind of comes around in some of the ways later. I think it's really poignant and keeps this whole thing focused in a lot of ways. I felt like so. Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think the standouts though are Florence and Lewis. I think they killed it in this movie. But we're talking about we've been dancing around all of the little ins and outs of the story. I think we can talk about how we felt about the overall narrative structure. Matt, how did you feel about the story? Did it work for you? Was there anything that didn't necessarily work for you?
No, it mostly works for me. I think it's a little messy, and I think some of the subject matter that they cover. I love the redemption story, the like what you mentioned about grief and self worth, um, and I think when you tackle something like mental health, especially what they do in this movie, I love that it's in an MCU movie, and I love that they're trying to tackle it in an interesting way, and I do think they do it in an interesting way. I just think it's a little surface level and a little basic, but I'm glad they went there, if that makes sense. Like, I'm
Yes.
glad it's not just, all right, we need to save the world. We need to do this thing. It is character based, and they are trying to do something a bit more than just, okay, superheroes save the city or save the world.
Mhm.
Like, they're trying to go a little bit deeper, and I appreciate that. Do they go super deep? I don't know, especially someone who struggled with a lot of the stuff that, Bob and Yelena has, maybe not to the extremes of
Sure.
their characters in this, but on, again, a basic level, a basic human level. I went, okay, I like that, this universe that I love that usually is just telling these, they are character focused and we love the characters. That's why we love this world, but they don't get, we covered Tony Stark having PTSD and things like that. But again, it all is just kind of set dressing to saving the world, where this
Mhm.
is really focused on that. And the whole story revolves around it. Its themes, its metaphors, and everything. The void and
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
is revolving around these characters' inner struggles, and I appreciated that. And I always love a Trojan horse movie. Like Barbie was that, Sinners that just came out last weekend is that, where you kind of have this popcorn movie wrapping, but
Mhm.
then it's kind of just tricking people to see it and is actually telling
Yeah.
you something, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
is, and,
That's
and I
so that's a
I
good analogy.
I love a
Mhm.
Trojan horse movie, and I feel like this is the first MCU Trojan horse movie in a while where it's like, okay, yeah, it's anti-heroes, it's Suicide Squad, it's, saving whatever bad guy saving the day kind of thing. But then it tells a really human, uh story and a character driven story. And while I think it does work. What I mean is just that I wish it went a little bit deeper.
Mhm.
So I think it's a little bit more than just, anti-heroes punch stuff, and that's really cool. And I think covering, purpose and trauma and redemption. I really love that stuff and how that's represented in, I don't want to go too deep into it, but
Right.
there's some sequences in the void, and I think that stuff gets really kind of, I compared it to like Inception
Yeah.
and Nightmare on Elm Street,
Mhm.
and those are two obvious examples, but I like how all those themes we're talking about are represented in that world,
Mhm.
and that's the kind of more superhero-y kind of stuff. But I think even how that's all done is really cool. So I think it's a good like starting point to try to tell deeper stories maybe in these movies. I just kind of want them to go even
Interesting.
deeper. Like I
Interesting.
do
Mm.
think that, not to compare superheroes to superheroes, but I think James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is doing a very similar thing a bit better. And I do think those other movies like Barbie and Sinners are that to like the A++ degree, but I
Mhm.
still really liked this and liked the
Sure.
story it was telling. So
Yeah.
No, I agree with Matt. Like pretty much everything you said. Because I was as I'm like trying to process my thoughts, I'm like, damn, it's like spot on. No, I agree. I really like the road to redemption story this movie unfolds. Um, I have a soft spot for Yelena. Like she's goofy, she's lighthearted, she's compassionate, and the story really much like revolves around like feeling like an outsider, and that's so relatable to people like myself, and I'm sure a lot of people. And yeah, I think the story is about like for my what I think is like very grounded. It's showing how these characters like go through hardship. it's very character driven, which I love. I love character driven stories. It makes us audiences care a lot about these characters. Like I said, I have a soft spot for Elena, but this movie kind of showed it more. Like I want to like relate to her, even though obviously our backgrounds are very different.
Mhm.
but yeah, but yeah, I just loved how character driven the story was, and getting to see these characters like their hardships and how much it relates to us audiences.
Yeah, I'm with you both. I think like to go deeper, I'm curious to know what a deeper version of
Yeah.
this movie is, but I think they
Dark.
kept, yeah, but I also think
Yeah,
they
I
kept it.
don't. Maybe you can't.
I think that's the thing. Like they didn't go that deep, but they found a way to unite all of these characters to make them a stronger ensemble. Right, like it's sort of this. I guess you could compare back to the first Avengers, how Coulson's death was the thing that kind of united them. Here it's something entirely different. I think it's just understanding each other's perspectives and understanding that even though they might be different, there's a lot more that they have in common with one another than they think, outside of just their own experiences. And I'm with you, Aisha. I think the idea of understanding self-worth is so understanding. All of these characters don't think that they should be heroes. They
Mhm.
should not be asked to do anything heroic. And they're going through they're processing their own stuff, whether it be grief, whether it be just things that have happened in their life, PTSD, whatever it is. Trusting people, it's all on display. And I think that weaves its way through this story. And like I was saying previously, like Bob kind of feels like this anchor that kind of brings it all to the forefront for them. And
Mhm.
like you said, Matt, like that those inception moments, those moments where they have to confront. I think that's the biggest part about any and all things with mental health, is to confront it and to have to face it. And I think that that's what this movie really handles well. And I applaud the movie for having emotional depth and being, as
Yeah.
you said, like a
Yeah.
Trojan horse film. Like people are thinking they're going to see a typical superhero ensemble film, and when they sit down and based on if they listen to this review, they'll be pleasantly surprised that it's not just that. It's so much more. It actually really does stay focused. And I think that's the biggest strength of this movie, is that it does stay focused on its characters, on their journey, and what it means for them from the start to the end of this film. Because I think that's what's been really lacking in a lot of MCU films, is focus, is this sense of like direction. Like I think the closest thing I can think of most recently is probably Guardians 3, right?
Mhm.
In
Yeah.
terms of like films that really knew what they were saying and had a message to say, and that was really about closure and family. And I think that's this film knows what it wants to say about it. And I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised, and I think they're going to have a new appreciation for all of these characters, given this story and the sort of the surrounding elements that help unify them and bring them together as an unlikely cast of characters that are expected to go and save the world, if you will, right?
Mhm.
So I think I think it hits the mark. But for me at least, there's not much from that narrative standpoint. I feel like the last little bit of like the third act, where we do get some of the big like some cool moments and emotional beats, it does feel like we are getting into like that superhero territory. I think the structure was really interesting from the beginning right up until we meet our antagonists and
I
see him.
completely agree. That
Yeah.
last act feels a bit rushed.
Yes, a bit
To
Yeah.
rushed, but
A little bit.
they still had those moments where we get to see, like, again, like those moments where we go inside the void a little bit more and it feels
Mhm.
very Inception-y and Nightmare on Elm Street. Those were really cool, but to get us there, it felt very like, okay, now we need to like convert to a superhero film, and then we're gonna slightly dip out of this, and then we'll come back here. So yeah, I think that, again, as much as you want to try to avoid those sort of tent poles of structure, I think they're kind of baked in to some of these films, like some of these Marvel films, as being that. So
I was gonna
yes.
say like this, like how Guardians was very Rocket focused, like this one's very Yelena focused, and I think that's what I think that really helps in the narrative process. Like you get to
Sure.
follow with one character instead of like
It's a great
them
point.
throwing the whole. I mean,
Mhm.
like the Guardians is the whole thing, Thunderbolts is the whole team, but we get to see it from one character,
Right.
and
But it's all about how
that
that
helps
that
too.
one character being like the anchor, but all the other
Yeah,
characters
Feed
sort of
like the
into
connect.
that,
support them.
and
Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's a great point of, yes, it's an ensemble, but you have that anchor that kind of brings everyone together and connects all their different stories. So that is a great point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably why it feels so, it's like somewhat similar to that sort of structure in a way. And I think, Jake really, he went in on this. Like he knew what he was doing here, and I think he chose an angle that is, I think, very unexpected, and I don't think a lot of
Yeah.
people would have chosen.
Yeah.
And to your point, it feels like it has a purpose. And like sometimes you just some of these movies we talked about at the beginning in the last couple phases felt like they were movies that they just had to make, where
Yes.
it was like, oh, we have to get another one of these out.
Yeah.
Like, again, I like the Marvels. I thought it was a fine movie. Like, and Captain America, I'm like, all right, I watched, the Red Hulk smash and shit up. Sure. I've seen, a super powered human fight a Hulk a million times. I guess I'll watch it again. But those movies just felt like they just are like, well, we have to make another one.
Yeah.
Like filler movies almost.
Yeah, like and I don't think that's their intention, but it's almost like they had to rush out another one of being like, well, even Love and Thunder, right? It's like, well, everyone loved the last Taika one, so let's make another one. And then you double and that was just down on it.
That was
and you're like, do you have enough here? You're like, you had Christian Bale, and you're like, he's the best part of this movie, and then you didn't know what to do with him. And like, so I feel like this movie really knew what it wanted to say. And mind you, I said, okay, they could have gone deeper. I know it's an MCU movie.
No, for sure.
So I just appreciate that they even went there, and I respect the effort. That's kind of what I mean, is like, would I have liked them to get a little, and it's tricky. Mental health is very tricky, especially in a populist superhero movie. So like, I just appreciate that they even tried to tackle it. And some people who maybe don't like the MCU would be like, well, that's a low bar. And I'm like, well, okay, sure. But we've had a lot of movies like we're talking about that maybe didn't say anything and were just superhero movies, which are fun as well. But I appreciate sprinkling in, and I hope that's in this next phase. Like, I feel like each phase has an identity, and I always liked when we got into phase 3, when they were like filmmaker focused, when you were bringing people in like James Gunn and Taika Waititi and even Shane Black with Iron Man 3. And like, they really felt like movies from, I love Iron Man 3, just so everyone knows. Like, I love it. Iron Man 3 is in my top.
Direction right there. I was like, okay, Taika, James.
I love Shane Black. And
I like Shane Black. I do.
Like, Iron Man 3 feels like a Shane Black movie. And then that's kind of what I mean. And Jake Schreier, sure, he's not, I don't know, he's going to be a well-known name to most people. And he doesn't necessarily have a stamp that I know, but I appreciate that it feels like it's his movie, and he had what he wanted to do, and it feels different. Yeah.
Shane Black directed The Nice Guys.
Yes.
Which is like the top gold like comedy. Wow.
Yes. And then that's Iron Man 3. I am such a defender of Iron Man 3. I love it. And and that era, moving from phase 2 to phase 3, because I feel like phase 2 was similar to where we are now, where we had some bangers like Winter Soldier and Guardians, but then you had something like Ultron and Iron Man 3, even to an extent that people didn't really love, that were kind of ups and downs. And then they kind of had a reset in phase 3 leading into, obviously Endgame and Infinity War and stuff like that. But
do you think Iron Man 3 is a Christmas movie?
You know what? Shane Black movies are Christmas movies, so I'll take it. I love that. I
had to ask that.
I love that he puts every single movie he makes
in
takes place in Christmas.
In Christmas time.
And
he has such a good working relationship with Robert Downey, and I think it was a good choice to do it. But I appreciate what you're saying there too. It's just this idea of choosing filmmakers that have a voice to say within this cinematic world, because I think there's such a thing of around Marvel saying like, well, if you do a Marvel movie as a filmmaker, you're not going to really have control. And I think that could probably be said about some filmmakers who probably may have lost control along the way. But I do think that they want to see stories told from different perspectives. And I think another great example of this is Chloe Zhao's, Internals. That was so different that people hated it. You know what I mean? And
almost maybe too far on that other side.
Sure.
But I was really
everyone's like, we need different Marvel. It's been too much, and then Chloe Zhao comes in with this, and everyone's like, no, this is not what we asked for.
No, for sure. But that's again, like, we're no one anticipated that only the fact that Marvel was touting that it was directed by an Academy Award winning
Yeah.
director, which they don't really get the opportunity to say that too often. But that said, like I do feel like you're both kind of right. Like there's been some movies that have felt like they've had purpose, they felt focused, they felt like they've had something to say, while others might have felt a little a little more filler, a little more just like, hey, we need to get this out because we need to establish X, Y, and Z for future projects. It does feel like Captain America was just like a reminder that Captain America is going to play a part in, the Avengers at some point. And yeah, I feel like, yeah, I know Love and Thunder gets so much hate. I actually really enjoyed it. I might have been.
I like a lot of elements of Love and Thunder.
I think it has a lot to do though with the fact that I was like at the point I wanted a kid, so it's like I saw like that father-daughter relationship sort of happening with the sort of love thing, and I think that really got me. But I think to your point though, they haven't all been gems, so it really is trying to find what connects with you as an audience member to each of these films, because for some it is something, and for others it's like it's way over. I was surprised with how many people hated Love and Thunder, in all honesty, but
I think it was just too much Taika.
It was
like,
too much of a Taika movie.
It was like an oversaturation of that guy at that point. Like I loved him, and I always will have a soft spot.
It felt
for
like
him,
Thor in a Saturday Night Live sketch.
Well, this is a theory that actually one of my co-hosts came up with, so I won't steal it. Kevin came up with this, saying that it's basically the reason why it's so exaggeratedly funny is because, or just out of this, in terms of its humor, is because Korg is narrating this story. It starts off with him narrating it, so
like unreliable narrator kind of thing.
Exactly,
like,
and it was like, and it's more or less, it's more,
I love Korg though.
Yeah, I know it's more, and the funny thing is, Korg is Taika, right? And he always starts his films with like these narrations that sort of help to kick us off, and I think that takes us into these worlds. So again, we've just deviated right off track here from the Thunderbolts.
When you invite me onto a podcast, we will get off track quickly.
I feel like we've entered the void, and now we've let's now exit that void. Look, we've talked a lot about it, the movie. I would love to know your final scores and any final thoughts that you might have about the film. We are going to be rating this out of 1 to 5 asterisks. Asterisks, yes. The asterisks that they have, big asterisks.
Love that. They're not stars. How dare you?
Yeah, exactly. Aisha, why don't you kick things off? What's your any final thoughts on your score?
I mean, I'm a sucker for ground level Marvel movies. Like I said, Captain America: Winter Soldier is my favorite Marvel movie. That's felt that so naturally. I love this one. I love the cast. Like they're a lot like Sebastian Florence are like actors. I love watching their movies. That felt really rewarding to see that. Stars asterisk. I'm gonna give this movie a 4 out of 5 asterisks.
Mm-hmm.
That might change because I'm seeing this movie on opening weekend with my brother with a full packed audience, so that might change. It's weird, like going to seeing with press is different from seeing with audience.
It really is.
Like,
I agree. Yeah. I agree completely. Yeah.
Yeah. I still hoot and holler when things happen though. I don't care.
No, yeah, same.
I'm like, what?
Eric just sucks the life out of me, And I'm kidding. I love you, Eric. I know you're probably listening.
Matt,
so 4 out of 5.
Yeah, 4 out of 5?
Before opening weekend.
Sure. Okay, cool. 4 out of 5 before opening weekend. Matt, what's your before opening weekend?
I think it's messy, not perfect, but still incredibly enjoyable with a great cast, great performances. I love the interjection of a message or kind of these interesting themes about mental health and redemption. So I really still really like the movie. I think the last act falters a little bit, feels a bit rushed, so it's not perfect. I'm gonna also give it a 4 out of 5 asterisks.
Dope. Yeah, I think we're all aligned. I think this is, I said it in my tweet, but this is the most human story from the MCU that we've gotten, at least in recent memories, outside of maybe Guardians of the Galaxy, which revolved around a raccoon. But I do think that this definitely flips the script, and intentionally. It's not about saving the world; it's more about saving yourself, and that deep emotional dive into these misfits, these unlikely characters who obviously need some sort of support system. That worked for me. I really understood. That was like the entry point for me to understand how these characters all connect. And like we were saying, you know, Florence is incredible. There's so much heart, so much depth, and I really do think Lewis Pullman's Bob it's a really complex and compelling character study in this film. It's absolutely done, and I agree. I don't think that this film is without its flaws, but I appreciate its focused narrative and character-driven approach. So
Absolutely.
it's definitely a standout in the MCU. So it is a 4 out of 5 asterisks for me.
Stay for the credits, everyone.
So, yeah, stay for the credits too.
Absolutely. Stay for the.
We won't talk about them. We wouldn't dare talk about them.
The second one is very important.
Yes, thank you for saying that, Aisha.
They're worth it this time.
Yeah, they are worth it. I just like that they put the one that was like, you know, more of a comedy sort of thing first, and then the important one at the end. And I definitely stay for both. It's awesome. It's really cool. It is what the internet has been saying. It's definitely worth staying and seeing the end.
I know, because it's spoiler free. I wanted to say we
should at least let them know.
The post credits is very, very cool, and you should watch it.
Yes,
and it's a very important one. There's 2.
Yes,
the second one's very important.
Yes, and that one's after the entire credit, so you'll have to stay for that one. So yeah, going old school. You gotta wait till the very end. But yes, that's it for our spoiler-free review. Before I wrap things up, I'd love to give you guys both a moment to share more about where people can follow you and find your work. Matt, I'll kick it off to you first.
Yes, I am Matt Rorabeck. You can follow all of my work around the internet, but mostly at untitledmoviepodcast.com. We are also available on all those podcast services. You can listen to us on YouTube. We don't do video versions anymore, but if you're one of those weirdos that likes to put on YouTube and just listen to shit, you can do that as well. Nice. Easiest place to find everything we do, just head over to Letterboxd and search Untitled_movies. We have an HQ over there, so you can find all of our reviews and interviews and things like that. So, and follow me on all those social medias at Matt Rorabeck.
Aisha.
I mean, a lot of my content that I do is over at the Agents of Fandom. We've been doing a lot of content over there. Personally, you can find me at Evans Larson's, like Chris Evans and then Brie Larson with an S at the end.
Love it.
2 of my favorite actors, like smashed into one, on Twitter and X, even though that's not the greatest app to be on, but I'm on it anyway. And then I'm Aisha Shabeese, my first and last name mashed together, on Instagram and Letterboxd. Go Letterboxd.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love Letterboxd.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to be putting all of that in the show notes. Again, a huge thanks to you both for assembling for this spoiler-free review. It means so much to have some guests to talk to while my geeks are off seeing Japan. I'm slightly jealous.
The Avengers are off planet.
The Avengers. So
they
we're
are
the Thunderbolts.
Yeah, exactly.
We're the
I love
Thunderbolts.
it. Oh, I love it. But listen, if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. And, you know, if you really enjoyed it, we would love a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. You know, there's an option there. Helps us. We get to spread the Geekcentric love. And we value that. Also, be sure to follow us on all of our social. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at We Are Geekcentric. And you can find us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT. Those are in the show notes as well. We are not done talking about this movie. There are some interviews in the bank for us that we're going to be posting on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/geekcentric, as well as on podcast feeds. I am trying to work something for a spoiler filled. Maybe we talk about those post-credit scenes. We'll report back on that at a later date. But yeah, there's obviously more Thunderbolts to be talked about, and there's a whole bunch of other episodes on our podcast feed. As I mentioned, I just got back from Japan, from Star Wars Celebration, covering the biggest Star Wars event in one of the coolest countries in the world, which seems to be like the place everyone's going this year. And Matt, you mentioned, like it's like everyone.
I open Instagram and I'm like, did everyone this year?
It's just a FOMO. You're like, oh crap, I have to go too.
And it was a really great time. Disney, a huge thanks to Disney Studios Canada for inviting Geekcentric out to cover the event and be there as official press for the purpose of covering the event. We already have our podcast episode out for that. We have all of our coverage about what we saw on our Instagram, saved as one of the archived memories. But keep in mind, we have a ton of other great episodes for you to enjoy, like our spoiler-free reviews for Andor Season 2, our spoiler-filled conversation for Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again, as well as our spoiler-free review for The Last of Us Season 2. We also have a ton of interviews out right now for you to enjoy, like our most recent interview with Genevieve O'Reilly and Tony Gilroy from Andor Season 2. That interview is available on our podcast feed as well as on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/geekcentric. And there will be some Thunderbolts interviews showing up soon, so be sure to subscribe to the channel. Again, to my guests, thank you so much for joining on this episode. I really appreciate it.
Thanks
for having us.
Awesome. And as we say,
have a marvelous day, everyone. I stole that from Kind of Funny. Shout out to those guys.
See ya.
Peace.